hell, I was a VD clinic on one facility I was on for about 3 months. And the first time, I started losing my humanity the third time they came in. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Getting 10-8. And as I told y'all, we would be seeing Patrick Pianezza again on the show at some point. This time, we aren't going to be hammering him about the movie like we did last time. You did a great interview last time, by the way.
Thank you.
We won't be hammering you about it. We'll probably talk some about it, but the movie is kind of forming the questions that I have in my head. And with us tonight, Patrick, is Mike Jones. Mike has been a few times here on the podcast. Mike was the industrial paramedic, the remote location paramedic that was working the night that the Deepwater Horizon event took place. And we were the closest facility to the Horizon when it went down. I was health, safety, security, and environmental. He was the paramedic that was there, and when they came and told me, hey, they're abandoning ship on the Horizon, I went and I looked out there and I said, this can't be happening in the Gulf of Mexico. And I was just looking dumbfounded at this thing and for about 5 minutes. And then I said, you dumbass, they're fixing to be sending you everybody that's hurt, because we were the closest thing to them.
Right.
So I went and woke Mike up, and first thing I said is, your sick bay ain't big enough, dude. We've got to bring everything from the sick bay down to the TV room. And we established we're going to put yellow primes in the SCBA room. We're going to bring the reds over here where we can close the door. We're going to have the yellows and walking wounded sitting over there. And we established, and we were the two medically trained people on that facility. So
wow.
We were there.
That's a huge. I mean, that's an amazing story, especially for just 2 years working something like that. How many patients did you go through?
I thought we
ended
had
up
10
getting,
or 11.
we had 10.
Okay, 10
We had
patients.
4 red and 6 yellow.
Yep.
Still though, only
No
2 years
yellow
ago.
primes.
No.
Yep.
The hardest thing that we had, Patrick, was we had one man that had 80% second and third degree burns. Now, at 2 o'clock in the morning, trying to figure out the Parkland formula,
Oh, geez.
that's like trying to figure out the theory of relativity.
That's a lot of IV fluid wide open is what that is.
Exactly. And plenty of morphine to back it up.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Never taken care of somebody who had that many burns. I've seen a couple of burns in my day, some worse than others, but not 80%. Jesus.
And
Well, what made it so bad, and Rob can back it up, is they put him in a Stokes basket. And, they have that aluminum pan in it. What happens when hot meat touches metal?
it
Yeah, that's
sears.
awful. Yeah.
Yeah.
It sears.
So we had our hands full, but we tag teamed it, and by 4:30, we had everybody packaged, stabilized, packaged, and shipped out to the appropriate facilities.
Right.
Again, that's
No, I thought it was like 5. It was like an hour before we were supposed to have our morning meeting.
Pretty close. I figured 4:35. I know 4:30 was the flight for the red tags, and it wasn't long after that we got rid of all of the yellow tag.
Yep. It was like air traffic control in there. We had the Coast Guard flying around, picking people up in the baskets that had jumped overboard.
right.
And they'd pick them up and pull them in the helicopter and fly straight to us, drop them off to us. We had a crew of folks that bring them down from the heliport, get them down here to us. They'd bring them through me. I'd say, put them in this room. Let's go over here with this one. and that's how we played all night.
Yeah, that's incredible. That's hats off to you guys. That's not easy work.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean,
you've been in EMS long enough to know that you can practice MCIs every month, the same drill every month. But if it actually comes to pass and happens, you drop back 10 yards and punt because it's not going to be the same.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I did the same training as everybody else. Clear a room of 50 people in 1 minute or 30 seconds or something. Um, I mean, that's easy when you got a clipboard and people just in makeup. You're going red, yellow, black, green,
yeah.
green, green kind of thing. But I mean, the closest thing to an MCI I've ever worked is a bad wreck on the highway, but nothing like that. I was on standby for Katrina. I was on standby for
We
there was
were in the eye of Katrina.
no,
We took
I
the
was on
hit
a
from that one.
I was in a tarmac in Lexington, South Carolina, waiting to get on a C-137 with the ambulance. They just never called our number. But I was there for 3 days straight waiting to get on. And then we had a really nasty train derailment in northern South Carolina, or up in the northwest. Sorry, and I got put on standby, but I never actually got deployed to that.
Yeah.
So again, never, thankfully. I mean, besides, I think the max amount of patients that I've ever had to triage is like 5. That was just trauma and stuff, but like never worked an active shooter or anything close to what you guys did. So hats off to you guys for that.
Man, I tell you what, speaking of Katrina, going back to Katrina, after Hurricane Katrina, MEMA came in and decided they were going to be in control of all the fuel. So there was a fuel truck that was heading into Hattiesburg loaded with diesel. His point of where he was taking it to was the main station for AAA ambulance in Hattiesburg, Mississippi, so he could top it off. MEMA confiscated that fuel tank, said, we're confiscating this for emergency vehicles. They said, this is for the dang ambulance company. This is AAA ambulance we're bringing it to. They confiscated that fuel. They had to get bootleg fuel from BP oil company, was sneaking 660-gallon totes of diesel into Hattiesburg at like 2 in the morning where nobody knew. So all the ambulances were going to this location outside of town where they had those totes. They'd pull up and we'd fill their damn trucks up. All right. One of the things I wanted to talk about tonight is we've all had great paramedics that we look up to. I just had 2 of them at that La Cusa barbecue that I was a judge at. Richard Chapman was there. He's been on this show. He's the gentleman that I told you, Patrick, that was on the Rescue 911 episode. Mm-hmm. Richard was there, and my old dispatcher, John Knight, who was also a medic, but he was in dispatch. So my big line for John was, John always told us where to go, and for me it was usually hell. But I got to catch up with some of the old guys that I was running the roads with back in the day, and I saw those guys, and I got to thinking to myself, and I want y'all's opinion, Mike and Patrick, to y'all, what makes a good paramedic? And we'll start off with Mike Jones on this. What do you think makes a paramedic be a good paramedic?
First of all, you have to be a people person, because you have to be able to talk to people, not down to them. Then you need to be a good listener, and you need to be able to take what they tell you and apply it to what you learned and put a lot of common sense behind it to provide the best possible care you can for that person.
Okay. That makes good sense. Patrick, I kind of think I know because I've seen your movie. You kind of told on this. What do you think makes a good paramedic?
I think it comes down to relationships with your patient, being able to establish rapport without losing your mind. I know you're alluding to it, but the line that I think sums up a great paramedic is someone that uh, can take a deep breath and see the whole thing versus getting tunnel vision. But I
Absolutely.
also feel like exactly to what you said, Mike. If you can't talk a patient down, and I'm not talking about someone who's violent or psychotic, but like being able to establish a rapport or a relationship with that person, it doesn't matter if they're having a stroke or they got a pulled hangnail. Like that is going to determine whether or not you're a good person. So if you start, or not a good person, a good medic, um, when you start to lose your humanity, I think it's time to start seriously looking at the exits. And I think that to me is when you have so much cynicism that you can't see the other person's humanity. And I'm not saying people don't have bad days or bad shifts, but when it becomes your sole personality trait, I think you need to get some help.
Yeah, when
Yep.
that Teflon wears off and you get really jaded.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's and for us down here on the Gulf Coast, what a lot of us old medics, when we started getting that burnt, we just went to what we called the retirement home. We went offshore and worked in remote medicine, which was usually you built a rapport because you were living with those guys for 2 weeks at a time. So if somebody had a traumatic event, it was like working on a family member. You lived with them half your life. But I mean, I knew, all right, when I started calling pedestrians hit by a vehicle pedunks, it's time for me to go offshore.
Well,
I mean,
offshore was no easy cakewalk either. We both know that. Uh,
right.
when I was on Atlantis, the barge supervisor comes up to me. He's got an open laceration of his thumb, and without X-ray, I know it's an open fracture. So, you know, all kinds of neat stuff
Ain't no
happens.
so in that one.
Laceration,
Yeah.
nope, chip them in.
And the deal with us, Patrick, is when you're offshore in remote medicine like that, they sent us to an expanded scope of practice class where because most of what we saw out there was being Dr. Mom. It wasn't the trauma like you're dealing with on a day-to-day basis when you're on a truck. Man, I've had an earache for 3 days. So you're doing otoscopic exams and figuring out, yep, you got otitis media. We got to give you some antibiotics. Did a lot of otic exams, did ophthalmic exams, lots of fluorescein strips, finding the piece of metal debris that got in somebody's eye and rolling it, ponticaning them up and rolling it out before it healed over. Hell, I was a VD clinic on one facility I was on for about 3 months. And the first time, I started losing my humanity the third time they came in. They would go home for 2 weeks and come back and have this raging VD again. And, I can only give penicillin so much and Rocephin so much before I quit mixing it with lidocaine. I was mixing it with straight normal saline, and I was punching that needle through the plunger about 10 times, dulling it up. I told him, hey, y'all got to find another girl.
Well,
But
I had an interesting infected piercing while I was on Nikika. You remember that?
yes, I do. Yes, yes, I do. I'd rather not think about that anymore.
Exactly.
So
It's
my
not enough of an
thoughts,
imagination.
my thoughts on what makes a paramedic is one, and it was displayed in the movie. Good command of the scene. Like you said, taking that big picture look and figuring everything out. Yes, you got to have the rapport with the patient, but also the rapport that you have to have an air of this is what I'm doing. It's like you said in the last podcast, Patrick. No matter what, you and your partner, whatever's thrown at you, you're going to be able to figure out a way to come to a resolution of it. That is having command of the scene, command of what's going on around. And I feel your better paramedics, that's what they seem to exude. Now, after the call, you may see them shaking when they're smoking a cigarette, because now it's dumping, everything's coming out. But when the call's going on, they look like, I got this. Let's go. We're doing this. Good scene presence and
Yeah.
rapport.
Fake
Well,
it till you make it.
48 hours after the Horizon incident come to a conclusion, and we were just refueling, you and I sat down, Rob, and we had a powwow. What did we do? What could we have done
Right.
better? Would we have
Right.
changed anything? And we come up with the same conclusion. We done exactly what we needed to do
With what we had.
when to do it. Yep. We roll with the flow.
One of the things we did, my role on the facility, Patrick, was I was on the leadership floor. So in the ICS structure we had out there, I was the safety officer. But in a medical, this was a medical event. It wasn't the platform's on fire or we're having to abandon. And I'm medically trained. I'm going down to do triage and stuff. And then I'm getting an idea of what's going on from Mike running upstairs, letting the OIM know without violating HIPAA. Hey, this is where we're at. We're at this many patients right now. We need to get a chopper out here. So I told you earlier, the Coast Guard's picking them up and bringing them to us. We've got guys up there that are going, okay, and they're on the radio, because as soon as the Coast Guard takes off, we've got an air ambulance coming. Can we pick somebody up? So we're dealing with all that.
Well,
And
it was a lot of hot fueling was going on too. I mean, it was every 15, 20 minutes we had a bird coming in for either fuel or to drop off.
Right. And that's another thing. All of those facilities, we're the gas station too for all the helicopters. So, and especially you got Coast Guard out there that's flying laps around picking people up. They can only do that so long, but they can go to that next facility where the fuel is and get topped off. I think we emptied our tank. We had a 2,500 gallon tank out there for JP8.
Well, you ordered in 16 more totes, and at the end
day
of
after,
at the end of 10 days after, well, when we left there, we had pumped a little over 16,000 gallons of fuel.
Jesus.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of stuff we did there. Now, we talked about the medic, and in the movie, and we might get a little bit more spoilish in here, but not full-blown spoilers. So if you have not seen Code 3, the movie, I suggest you go to Apple TV or to Fandango or to Amazon Prime and order it. It is worth your time to look at this if you're looking at this video. I promise you. The relationship that Randy and Mike had, you know, when they're on that post, they're killing time, they're playing stickball, and Mike realizes that Randy has him as his best friend. So Randy thought Mike was such a good partner. You build a rapport with your partner. You know, we all have that one partner that, hey man, that's the guy I love working with. Mine is Joe Paul, God rest his soul, Joe Paul Sr. I worked with him. He was an old Vietnam vet. Came out, he was in an EMT ambulance, but he was medic in Vietnam, I believe. Or hell, he might have been toting a rifle. I don't know. He didn't really talk that much about it, but he was squirrely as he could be. He was funny. We'd sit there and make up songs in the ambulance, make up funny songs. One time we were sitting there watching people catching crabs on the seawall, and we came up with the song, "Don't Go Buy No Seafood, Mama, Daddy's Coming Home with the Crabs." So that's the kind of stuff we would do on our standby time. But what makes a good partner to you? What makes it? And did you have a relationship with your partners where you did something with them away from work? Because that was brought up in the movie. I did. I mean, Joe Paul, I'd go down and fish with him, or he'd come up and fish with me, because we both were into fishing and everything. So we had that to bond over.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly had partners that I would hang out with after work. I mean, obviously the movie makes a little bit of a joke about it, but because again, the whole point of the movie, I feel like I have to defend it, is to be entertaining. So for everybody who's
Yeah,
nitpicking every that last
it,
bit, like the movie still has to be fun to watch.
absolutely.
Um, but I mean, I was in college for the majority of when I was working EMS, and so uh, the people that I was hanging out with the most were some of my coworkers that were also at the university with me. So
Right.
there was probably, let's see, one, two, three, four, five, six. There's six of us that were all working the same night shift, and we were all at the same university, and so we would constantly be hanging out day and night. So that was always fun. And whenever Danielle and I were on the truck together, that was always. I knew she was smart. I knew she was competent, and we were gonna. We just had a ball together. We were hilarious. Uh, and so I always loved working with her. Same thing with Hunter. But yeah, and then there were partners that kind of made the shift last 18 hours in a 12-hour day. But yeah, I mean, it was one of those things where for me, what makes a good partner is number one, can I trust you? And I don't mean like when I say trust you, I don't mean like don't tell HR, because I do
No,
still
no.
think for as
Do I
inappropriate as
trust when I say go get me something in the unit, or I
exactly.
or like this is why Joe Paul was my favorite. I would be going, hey, I need and he was set. He was already spiking a
Yeah.
D5W with a mini drip. He knew what I was going to ask for before I asked for it, and had it ready for me.
Yeah, that's the kind of partner that's invaluable. And for me, what's more important is if I really trusted you, I'd let you get the first blood. If it was something nasty and I'm working, and I would be like, grab a blood pressure for me, there were only a select number of people that I knew I could trust that whatever number they gave me, number one, wasn't made up, and number two, probably wasn't going to be a palpation unless that patient was really dying. And either way, like as far as I was concerned, then that was me taking that blood pressure. I trust you enough to say that to know that that number is
I'm
going to be
writing that down on my scratch pad. I'm
yeah.
taking your
But
numbers.
those partners are in your head. They know what you're thinking, the direction you're going, and they're reading your mind. Like you said, you turn around and they're already spiking the D5 or the ringers, whatever you're. And I even had one, and Rob knows it, Jimmy Parker. I turned to him and he'd already be handing me an 18 gauge or a 20 gauge or, depending on the call, a 16 gauge.
Yeah. I still love one. I was running ALS backup for somebody years ago, and they were a BLS truck, and he's just coming over the radio, and tell me what you got, and I think it was an MVA or something, doesn't matter. And he goes, it's bad, and I said, okay, and I open up the back door, and I go to step in because the way we were working was, some trucks were just basic, some were medic EMT, and so nitpicky stuff your audience doesn't care about. I had keys to all the magic doors because I was a crew chief.
Right.
Um, so I could open up the back, but when I opened up the back door and I stepped in, as soon as I stepped in, Ryan had already jumped out and pulled the backboard off the stretcher, maybe about 6-8 inches. And as I'm walking up towards the captain's chair, the laryngoscope, the intubation, everything is set for me. And he was just like, he goes, I just got done suctioning, and sure enough, like this guy obviously needed to be intubated. And I literally sat down in the captain's chair, stuck the laryngoscope in, and I mean it was just like clockwork. And as soon as I was in, he shoved the backboard all the way back in. We locked up, slam, slam, gone.
Yeah. That's
Partners
that.
like that are few and far between, but I've been fortunate to work with several over the years. Jimmy Parker, Wendy, guy I worked with out at Fort Polk, Rick, all of them great people that were in my head. Unfortunately, I feel sorry for
Now, Mike was also in Vietnam. Patrick, he was doc before he was ever a paramedic. Just FYI.
Well, that's cool.
So,
8.5 months worth.
That ain't
so
nothing.
as a paramedic, I got to thinking about, all right, what was my nitpicking thing that I was always on my partners about? You know, didn't have to get on Joe about it, but if I was with somebody else, or if I was because I was a preceptor for all the paramedic students that were coming from UMC, and I was the training officer, so I had all the new people at the ambulance company were riding with me before they got cleared, and they could go on, and I'd get Joe Paul back as my partner. So anyway, it was my biggest pet peeve was the ceiling of my ambulance better be spotless. I don't care if there's blood on the floor, or if you miss a drop down there, but that damn ceiling better be the cleanest thing. And I would explain to my partners, what do you think that patient is looking at when he's laying on that stretcher all the way to the hospital? I don't want it to look like a mass murder happened in this thing before. So,
Or that patient that erupts like Mount Vesuvius and power pukes all over the place, including the ceiling.
yeah. That was my biggest pet peeve, was if I was in the truck and I was transporting a patient and I looked up and I saw a drop of blood that was up there. And usually it was when I would get in the ambulance, when I first get the ambulance from the handover at the new shift. That's the first thing when I opened up the back, I was looking up at the ceiling, because I would make that other crew, hey, get that ceiling. Get that ceiling. That's what the patient looks at the whole day. So they all knew that was my pet peeve. What were some of your pet peeves, Mike Jones? Did you have any?
Like you, when I was working for Life Care, I was the preceptor on several paramedics. And I had two that hit all of the buttons. I had one that could quote you the book, the chapter, the paragraph, and the verse, but he couldn't move it from here to his hands. So he would sit there and wouldn't do nothing. He wouldn't even take a blood pressure. And then the real coup de grace was I had this one young lady her voice was like fingernails on a chalkboard. And she was going to start an IV on a guy with chest pain. I put the monitor on him. She was getting ready to start the IV. She puts the tourniquet on the arm, and then she turns the bevel going down towards the wrist to start the IV.
Backwards?
So I stopped. Yes, I stopped her. I got the IV going. When we got back to the station, I called Miss Peggy, who was half owner of the company, and explained to her what happened. And she said, well, send her home for the day and tell her to come in tomorrow, and we'll give her her assignment. They give her an assignment back home.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
That was scary.
Yeah. She wanted to get that hand hydrated.
Yeah, absolutely.
My big thing was always, so I will preface this with my pet peeve. It basically lines up. It's similar to "Don't lie to me," but whenever I was a preceptor unofficially, I was never paid for it. I never had the title of it, but magically all the new medics started riding with me.
Yeah.
After they got off FTO. And so I would tell if it was the first time I'm working with you on a shift, I would tell everybody the same thing. I don't like being surprised unless it's Christmas or my birthday. I was like, if I find it and you miss it, then I'm going to be upset. And number two, I would tell all of them this exact same thing. I was like, look, it's my job to know literally everything on this truck. I know where everything is. I know how to use every bit of equipment that is on these 6 tires. If I ask you to do something and you say I got it, then I expect you to do it. I was like, if I ask you to do something and you go, you know what, I'm not as comfortable, I forgot how to do it, you have one of those brain farts, all of a sudden hair traction looks like a rabbit to you, fine, tell me. But if I ask you to do something and I turn around 5 minutes later and it's not done and you're sitting there looking like you're looking out the window or counting fingers, I'm not going to go set you right at the second. We're going to have a conversation when we hit the hospital.
Yep. I always did that. I never in front of a patient did I ever say anything. It was always afterwards. And I wouldn't do it in front of a nurse or a doctor in the ER. I would wait until we were back in the unit and say, okay, let's talk about this call. And I would have that discussion with them. Because those were a lot of times difficult discussions to have. Yeah. So treat them with dignity, and hopefully they'll listen and learn from you rather than just go, well, that guy's a complete asshole. Which,
yeah.
you know, I am an asshole. I'm just a grade C asshole. I'm not a full blown grade A asshole.
So when I worked in South Carolina, everything was codes and signals, and I hate that. I'm a big fan of plain text on the radio, but early on in my career, and when I moved to South Carolina, it was you could respond to code 3 for signal 74,
Right.
which was respond emergent for respiratory distress. And I always, especially coming new into this system, and my old system was all plain text, and I go, these signals are dumb, and they're not nationwide. There's no uniformity to it.
Yeah.
Just say I'm going to a respiratory distress. Why should I have to look through a flip book to know the call that I'm going to? Uh, and I got in big trouble when I was in training. So I was already a paramedic with a couple of years of experience when I moved to South Carolina, and I'm sure the training officer wanted to murder me more than once because I'd come back over the radio and like my little point of defiance was I'm en route emergent to the hospital respiratory distress, and my phone would start chirping and you got to be using it's unprofessional. I'd get yelled
Good
at.
little
I got
common
yelled at.
sense there.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's my thing is just there's no reason for it. We're not doing any HIPAA violations, but just make the communication easier.
Well,
Short, sweet, to the point.
now we were plain text when we were on state net talking to the ER and to the doctor, but when we were talking to dispatch, we had codes and signals, and that was because you had all these people that are down here in the South. You know how everybody knows everybody's business, right?
Got scanners.
Usually it's because they got a scanner on their damn kitchen table and that's their entertainment. They're listening to us on the scanners, trying to figure out what our codes and signals are. But the damnable thing is, you go to the service in the very next section, their signals don't line up with yours, so you have to do plain text if you are assisting them on another call because your codes don't line up, your signals don't line up. Same thing, you go over to another state. I went over to South Louisiana. Their codes and signals were completely different from the two companies that were running the Gulf Coast of Mississippi. So, yeah, it does get kind of confusing.
I hated it. I hated it with every fiber of my being. I didn't like it, and I made my point known. If anybody goes back and listens to the tapes, I'm sure that right after I said something, like I said, very early on, you hear my training officer cussing me out for it because I hated it.
Oh, dude.
But each service had their own little unique uh, differences. Like when the mom and pop ambulance life care got bought out by the Green Machine,
Yeah.
uh, they had the DXTs, and always hated it because we'd get called from our parish and have to go cover another district, and they'd have 3 or 4 units sitting at the hospital twiddling their thumbs. So we'd just go by and hit their 10-8 button on the DXT, because if we went 10-8 first, we would get the next call that was holding for them. So we would be nice and 10-8 them.
That's awfully kind of you.
Helping them out.
Good evening and welcome to the middle of the film.
I still remember one of the funniest things I did. This is way, way back. So back when I was a volunteer fireman, like I think fresh out of EMT school, I think I was a probie on the fire department. Had to have been. I don't think I was a regular member yet. But we had me and the only guy who survived the fire academy together. We were the only two guys in the district. It was middle of the day because I was working night shift at the hospital. The call, you had to go to the firehouse, get your equipment and your gear, and then get on a fire truck and then go to the scene. So we show up to the firehouse. We start the engine. We put our bunkers on. We're ready to go. And it's like 2 minutes, 3 minutes. Nobody's coming. We're making a call out to the radio. Nobody's coming. And so we just look at each other. And I mean, when I'm telling you we are green, I'm talking like we graduated the academy maybe 2 weeks ago.
And y'all just jumped in the engine and took off.
Yeah. And we were just like, I guess this is us. And so I jumped in the OIC chair. Jake jumps in the driver's seat. We take off. Thank God it was just a tiny brush fire. It wasn't anything to it. But the funniest bit is I know that I'm terrible at pumping a truck. Like to me, it's calculus. Like I'm not the guy you want at the pump panel. So as soon as we get out, it's this minor brush fire, maybe, couple square yards. And I hurry up but without even asking permission, I grabbed the end of the hose line, took off towards it. So I left him at the pump panel. So I'm standing there.
Charge me up. Charge me
Yeah,
up.
I sit there, I yell back at him, I go, I need water. And I could just see him fuming because he's about ready to start beating the pump panel with a hammer. I don't know what God he prayed to, but he got water to me. And put it out. Like I said, it was we feel like heroes. We're high-fiving each other. It's the two of us. We get cleaned up, head back to the firehouse. And as we come back, I get on the radio and my brain is just melted. And I just came back and I was just like, County, we're done. And to this day, he is now a high-ranking member of that fire department, and he still tells that story to all the new recruits about proper radio etiquette.
We're done. So, were y'all in a proper brush truck, or were you in actually a pumper for like a house fire?
No, we were in a proper brush truck.
Okay.
Which was even funnier too, because when we got back to the house, our chief yelled at us because, two probies taking a fire truck out was probably not the best decision, but.
Yeah,
it was a fun day. That's all I'm saying. It was a fun day. We earned it, and it was worth it.
In the job that I currently work, I used to be on the prescribed fire team. We use prescribed fire to manage the landscape here in the southeast in the longleaf pine ecosystem because it's good for the environment. And because I was the longest of the tooth and the old fat guy, I was the pumper. I was the truck. And then all the younger guys, they were in the Polarises with their 60-gallon tanks riding around. Of course, we weren't putting fire out. We were starting it. We were going there with the drip torch and starting it and doing that. So most of what I was doing was tendering for the ones with the 60-gallon tanks. My 250-gallon tank, I was topping them off when they were running low on their stuff. And then if there was like a cat face on a tree, I'd put that out so the whole tree wouldn't burn down. And then circle and call the weather in once an hour, tell them what the weather is. So.
Well, the first volunteer fire department I was with, we had a tank truck, 500 gallons, no baffles in the tank.
Oh,
so
no.
You filled it up and you parked it by City Hall and come back 30 minutes later and it's still doing this.
Our old pumper, our very old pumper truck that got retired didn't have baffles in it. And in Illinois, it snowed, and you hit that brake and you went through the intersection. Tires weren't moving, but the truck was.
1,000 gallons of water said, "We're going."
Brakes are optional. It didn't matter. That truck was going to stop when it felt like it.
That's right. And you dealt with something that Mike and I didn't. Mike was in North Louisiana. I was over here in South Mississippi and South Louisiana. We didn't deal with a lot of ice. Up there in Chicago, you had some ice to contend with. And hell, probably in South Carolina, huh?
I mean, it really only snowed 2 or 3 times that I can actually remember. And one of those nights I remember I was working. It was the worst snowstorm in South Carolina history, though, one day. And there are no snow plows. Well, I think there's like 2 snow plows in the entire state south of once you get past the upstate. Yep. And so it was just like 6 inches of snow in 3 hours or 4 hours. I mean, it looked like Armageddon out here.
Yep.
And it was hilarious because just driving the trucks, just driving the ambulance down the interstate was challenging because, I mean, it doesn't matter if you're an ambulance or not. If the road's not plowed, that snow cakes up on the tires and everything else.
Right.
So, I mean, you're talking about...
And nobody's got chains.
Oh, no, of course not. I mean, we're talking about an average, 10-minute transport taking the better part of an hour because you couldn't go anywhere.
Right.
But we did the best we could. But some of the ice, especially in central Illinois, was, I mean, one of the absolute worst fires I've ever been on, ever. It was also like negative 20 degrees, and you had to keep the hoses running or the hoses would freeze. And it was the most miserable I've ever been. Like, you wanted to go inside the fire just to warm up. It was so cold.
It's my turn to go in. I'm putting my SCBA on, damn it.
Shreveport and Bossier, no, it's not uncommon for Shreveport Bossier to get ice. One night we left Sabine Medical Center with the cardiac and just had an IV and a monitor going, and the patient was stable. My partner was driving, and we got just south of Shreveport, within about 20 miles of the hospital, and you could feel the ambulance starting to skid a little bit. So she stopped right in the middle of I-49. We hadn't seen a vehicle in an hour. And I said, well, look, you feel comfortable monitoring the IV? Yeah. So I run the cable up through the hole and plugged it into the monitor on the right front seat. And I drove to Shumpert Hospital. Well, we get done unloading the patient, and I got the stretcher back in there. Here comes a Louisiana State Trooper. You know, the roads are closed. I said, yeah, I know. Well, you going to stay here tonight? No, we're going back to Manny. Well, you know, the roads are closed. Yeah, that way nobody's going to run into us. And we went on back to Manny.
Yep. That's,
Yeah,
go ahead, Patrick.
Oh no, I mean I remember driving by rumble strips where it's like complete whiteout. You're just driving, grrr, okay, driving, grrr, okay.
Oh, using it like braille on the sides of the road. Yeah, we didn't have braille. Rumble strips weren't a big thing back in the 80s down here in South Mississippi, and it was like, and it's funny down in South Mississippi. I call it rednecks on ice. It's better than any damn skate capade show you're going to see. Like, we had what we called Snowmageddon. Mike, you were out there offshore when it happened, and it delayed crew change for most people getting down there. We had like 5 inches of snow in Harrisburg, Mississippi, which is unheard of. And what happens is, because it melts so, the road was so warm when it hits that it makes an ice layer down there. So the highways end up being black ice. And watching these rednecks that have never driven on snow and all trying to move, and they're going slow. You know, they're doing 15, 20 miles an hour trying to get up a highway. Well, where I lived, you know, I knew I was okay because I had my John Deere Gator that had my knobby tires, and I'd just ride on the side of the highway in the grass, and I was getting through it and going to the store and buying beer. And Copenhagen, I was still dipping Copenhagen back then. I was able to get my beer in Copenhagen. I was good. I had food in the cabinets. I'm going to be fine. But I got to laughing when I went up there to the beer store to get some beer and some Copenhagen at all these people that were having issues. So I went back and I got my wife. I said, look, let's go. Let's get back. Put on your long johns. Put on your clothes. We go up and we park at the hill at the entrance to our house. And we've got a good shot of this highway going back and forth. I said, there's a hill right here. Watch these idiots try to get up the hill. And they're doing about 20, and they're going down the hill, and they're trying to use their brakes. Brakes don't work on ice, but they get down there to the bottom, and then they're trying to get up, and there's no traction. So they just all end up, it's like a possum belly down there. They were... We sat there and drank beer and laughed at those people. Yeah. I tell you,
Remember that snowstorm I was telling you about where
the 5 inches
where I was working? Well, we had one. I remember we were going to the hospital with something that wasn't emergent. And as we kept going, my partner kept stopping, and I was like, "Why are you stopping?" And he goes, "Another car's in the ditch." So we'd be passing these cars on the highway that were all in the ditch. And so I would end up just opening the back door. You guys okay? Yeah. You want to go to the hospital? No. Okay. Close the door, drive within another half mile or so, open back. You guys okay? Yeah. Okay. You want to go? No. Okay. Slam. I still got a patient in the back. We ended up transporting something like 4 people from the highway.
just to get them into a warm hospital, probably.
Yeah. Just throw them on the bench seat. You know, they're walkie-talkie. I mean, they couldn't be going fast enough to hit the tree. You know, I mean,
yeah. You kind of talked about some rules. We talked about pet peeves. I'm going to let you start, Patrick, on your rules. When you had the new partner, what'd you tell them were your rules working with you on the truck? Don't lie.
Don't lie to me. Number 2 would always be unless it's Christmas for my birthday, I don't want to be surprised. So if you see something, say something, especially if I miss it. And I would make a point to say it exactly like this. I would tell them, if I miss something, I expect you to tell me. Uh, like if I'm working something and I tell them, like if I got tunnel visioned in on something else and their foot got chopped off, and for whatever reason I didn't see the fact that their foot got chopped off, I was like, I want you to stop me and tell me. Um, and then, like I said before, the other one was, if I ask you to do something and you don't know how to do it and you tell me, that's great. But if I ask you to do something and it doesn't get done, or you look at me like I've got a third eye coming out of my head, we're gonna have a problem. So
Right.
those are my rules for whenever I met somebody new, because I know that there's stuff that I'm gonna miss, but I also know that I need to be able to trust you. And even if you're green, you could tell me like, this is what I think their blood pressure. That was always my code word. I think the blood pressure is this. If you said it like that, then I would recheck it. But if you came out the gate and was like, that blood pressure is 120 over 80, they're white
Oh
as a
yeah.
sheet,
Yeah.
diaphoretic.
Yep. You're faking it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Barometric blood pressure. That's what I call those. Or I always liked when they take it, because we all have manual cuffs. So
Yeah.
I
The odd
always
number.
I always like when they tell me, yeah, it's 136 over 94 or 93.
Yeah.
Really? How'd you get to that 93 on that diastolic?
Splitting hairs.
Yeah. There it's 2 millimeter mercury increments. You can't do that from here. But I thought you were going to say walk, don't run.
Oh yeah.
That was one of mine, but the reason it was one of mine was, one, for safety, but two, it gives a sense of, we got this. We're projecting that we've got this.
You start looking frenetic, everybody else starts losing their mind.
Right. Never argue over a patient, which was well displayed. And holy shit is not the proper way, is not the proper time during the assessment to say that.
There was we did that in the movie, so I don't want to spoil it because I think it's one of my favorite gags. But
They didn't say it, they double taked.
That's true. We did that. We did that way, or I'm sorry, the reaction. We shot it a couple different ways. We had the one that's in the movie, which is the one that I like.
Mm-hmm.
But they had them go, "Oh my god!" or "Holy shit!" And while those were fun, not even arguably, they just objectively were funnier. That was one of those times where I had to pull out the paramedic card and be like, "No, we can't do that."
Exactly. But yeah, it was very tastefully done in the movie. The reaction was there just because, oh my god, but they didn't say it. They didn't verbalize it. I've had a guy that verbalized it before, and I look back and I'm like, what the hell are you doing? So, Mike, what about you? What are some of your rules?
Always keep the truck 10-8, and if I got time after a call, I'll be out there helping you wash it and clean it and disinfect it. Know where everything is at. You are my extra set of eyes, ears, and hands. If I don't see it, call it to my attention. And above everything else, if you don't feel comfortable doing something, let me know.
Yep. Sounds like you and Patrick went to the same playbook.
we cut from the same cloth of material.
That's it. Patrick, y'all are what I would call neighbors, because y'all are out there on the West Coast.
Yeah.
Where are you at, Mike?
Riverside.
Oh, okay. I know where you're at. Yeah.
Inland Empire.
Yeah. I'm in Long Beach.
Yep.
I was camping down in Long Beach about 3 months ago by the Queen Mary.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Golden Shore RV.
Oh, yeah. You're not too far away from me at all.
Yep. He's a man of leisure now, traveling the country and looking at it through an RV window.
We just finished a 21 days, 10 state, 5,410 mile trip.
Wow.
I'm ready for another one.
You know,
they make planes, Mike.
yeah, they make planes and hotels.
I figured it up. For 21 nights, we average paying $63 a night for full hookups in our own house.
That's fair.
You take your time, you get to see the world, and we camp 11 months out of the year. And of course, month 12 is coming up, and I stay busy, but it ain't camping.
Sure.
He's Santa Claus for lots of hospitals.
Yep.
That's awesome. I got a little bit of Santa coming in. Well,
Oh, talk to me when you look like this, son. As I look at pictures of me from 8 years ago when I first started where I'm at now, and I look at what I look like now, and I say, holy hell, who is that old guy? Because it ain't the same anymore. All my aging started taking place within the last 8.
We're all getting older, Rob. That's the sad part. Like you said, you talk about a lot of the people that's gone on. Well, 20 years ago, they were still around, and only old people died. Now we're up there in that bunch.
Well,
speak for yourself. I'm going to live forever.
Yeah. What was
I'll
it?
be 72 Friday.
Ricky Bobby said, no, I don't think I'm going to live forever, but with today's medical science and my money, I should be able to make it to 120, 130 in Talladega Nights.
Yeah.
I'm not unrealistic. One of the things you had mentioned on the last episode, and I kind of let it slide, but it's been sticking in my craw, Patrick. You said, yeah, you'd love to make this a series.
Yeah.
I guarantee you, with the brain power of the medics that come through this show, if you ever hit a stalemate on stories, we have calls that we can recall for you and flip it to you and let you write it the way you need to.
I'd be honored. You just got to get Hollywood behind it and tell them to make it happen.
Yeah. Well, I have all the faith in the world that they're going to be going, hey, this is lightning in a bottle. Just like MASH was a crazy movie from some damn book by a guy named Richard Hooker. What the hell? Who is this guy in the movie? But then it ends up being a 13-year series of episodes, on a sitcom. Which, by the way, I was nuts about both the movie and the sitcom. I was
yeah.
I had a little of my tism coming out about MASH. I could quote you just about any information you wanted to know.
Well, the most important part of MASH was when Hawkeye had his best friend who get killed that was writing a book. You never hear the one that gets you.
Yep.
And what Henry Blake told him. And I've always used that when I was teaching the EMT classes out at Fort Polk. Rule number 1, young people die. Rule number 2, EMTs, paramedics, and doctors cannot always change rule number 1.
Right.
Yeah, I was on a different podcast just a few days ago, and they said something that I'd never heard of that I really like. That's very much in that same vein. That was like, people live, people are going to die. Our job, if you count, or how do you say it? If you count your successes in the amount of lives that you save, you're going to be very miserable because there's a lot of people that are going to die no matter what you do. Yep. Our job is to bend the needle and give them a chance. And he was like, if you gauge it that way, then you're going to have a much more fulfilling career. And that was one of the few moments I got shocked into silence. I was like, damn, that is kind of perfect. That's the way
that is.
And sometimes you bend the needle by accident.
No question about which direction.
Oh, well, this is a good one. I had a rookie partner, and we had a chest pain that was in a single wide trailer house. And your hallway is like this wide. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the hallway was the bedroom and the bed right there by the window and the door. So I had to go in. We had to bring the stretcher in to the end of the bed and slide the patient lengthways. Well, as we started out, now this patient's in a systole. As we start out, my partner's not holding the stretcher and it flips up. The guy hits the floor.
Oh, no.
So we get him back up on the stretcher. We get him into the living room, and I look at the monitor. I check for a pulse. We got a pulse.
You
He's
converted
breathing.
him from dropping him on the floor. Good job, Doc.
We get him in the truck. we get to the hospital, and I called the doc. I said, look, I got to tell you what happened. He starts laughing. He said, Mike, you remember 12 years ago when we were teaching the precordial thump where you hit
Yep.
them with your fist in the chest? That's exactly what you did, was a precordial thump.
I think
Yep.
I said it on this podcast, but on the last episode, my one claim to fame is converting VFib into
With
normal
your-
sinus rhythm with a loud verbal stimuli.
That's right. Yes, you did say that on here.
I got the strip to prove it.
And you're now, Mike, here's the difference in me and you. When it comes to that trailer and getting a stretcher from the back room, if I had a full arrest, I didn't immediately start doing ABCs or anything. I grabbed that patient by arms or legs and drug them out to the living room. I would tell my partner, move that coffee table and everything. Drag them out to the living room where I had room to work. Then I'd start my code. Hey,
Well, we were going to, but like I said, there wasn't, even with that bed in there, my butt was against the wall and my knees were touching the bed. This had to be like a 10 or 12 foot wide. There was no room.
yeah.
We had zero room. So we had to get him out best we could.
Have
Yeah,
you
I always
dealt?
believed in just doing CPR right on the bed. Just
Yeah.
especially for the water bed.
Hey,
Yeah.
that's
Or
that's
chicken
like
wing it.
that's like most Hollywood movies I've seen, but it's not like one that I've seen here recently. That looked like CPR going on. That looked like if there was a mask on a patient, the reservoir was filled on the non-rebreather.
What a
Yes.
crazy thought. We weren't choking out our patients. Don't publish that part. But no, I don't have any of the raw footage.
So Patrick wasn't just the writer of this. He was also the medical consultant that was there that was saying, no, that's not the way a paramedic would do this. So perp, good job. Excellent passing the EMT and paramedic smell test of a movie. Because it's like you said, hell, it's like in the movie where he's sitting there watching the movie. Oh, that's bullshit. You can't do this with this. You know, that's the way all of us medics are when we look at anything that's dealing with the medical show. And like I told you on the last episode, I compare this. This is EMS's The Pit. That's it. The Pit was a 12-hour day. This is a 24-hour shift on an ambulance. And what you see is what you get. And I think that chef's kiss, you did it right.
Well, thank you. I'm glad. That's the kind of stuff whenever I get messages or whenever I see stuff like that in the reviews, that's the part that makes me real proud, is that especially the people that are still doing the job, they're like, yeah, this is true, is what I care about.
There you go. At the point when you came on the last show, was this the first podcast that you had that was all medical professionals or all EMTs or paramedics with you?
No, I've been kind of making the rounds on it. If you Google EMS podcasts, I've probably been on it.
Okay. Well,
I mean,
well, thank you for coming on this little one. I appreciate you.
I love it. It's great. It's been a lot of fun. A lot of them are some of them are educational, like the EMS 2020 podcast, where that was a lot of fun. It was that interview was probably the most unique because, I mean, yes, we did the traditional ask me about the movie bit, but then they ran through a scenario. Somebody that show is based on listeners submitting calls to their two flight medics. And then I was just there as a guest. Like, how would you proceed on this call? And that was kind of fun because I get to dust off the stethoscope and pretend like I know what I'm doing still.
You do.
But yeah. And then some of them were our leadership podcasts, like the Better Every Shift, the Salty Paramedic, the EMS One Stop, EMS Leadership podcast, like those podcasts. I think that's all of them that I've been on.
I like the Salty Paramedic. He's got some great stuff.
Yeah, he's really good. Cody, he was a lot of fun. I was his first podcast. That was his first, when he transitioned from just making fun videos on the internet, but being on with him, I had conversations with the guy who does the Fire Department Chronicles, Jason. He's a really nice guy. From what he doesn't have a podcast, but he helped promote the film, which I was very grateful for. And then Paramedics on Facebook has been doing a lot of promotion for us. Has
Yes,
been
I
really
have.
putting that out there too. So I'm always grateful to get anything out there to help get the word out. So those are the ones that I could think of immediately that I've been on, and I really like it. I mean, I was podcasting before podcasts were cool. I mean, in the 2010s, I was on the EMS Leadership Podcast for 2 years with Rob Lawrence and Chris
Right.
Cebollero and Don Lundy, and we
I
did
saw
that
where
for
they were
like,
promoting you. They said
yeah.
our own Patrick Pianezza. So yeah, that was awesome.
Well, the best part about that was, so Rob Lawrence is now the director of the California Ambulance Association. And back then he was, I don't know what his title was. He was a chief of something or somewhere. Back when we were on the EMS Leadership Podcast. So anyway, flash forward to we're making the movie, and production, without me knowing about it, had reached out to CAA trying to find us an ambulance partner to give us, a truck and a substation and things to work from. So Rob calls me because Rob asked who wrote the movie, and of course it's my name. And so Rob goes, the way Rob tells the story is he hung up immediately on whoever he was talking to and just called me. And it's just like, did you write a movie? It's like, yeah, Rob, how do you know about this? He goes, he's British. And he's like, I'm the bloody director of the CIA.
So that's how you got to use Lifeline.
Yeah. So Rob knew the people at Lifeline who were the most amazing partners you could ask for in a thing like this. And so it was just really funny to have that relationship that, I didn't even know that Rob was still in the game, to reach out, and then they got us all kinds of partnerships. They got us Lifeline, they got us Furno. So yeah, it was incredible to be able to do that. So, I mean, I love doing all this kind of stuff because you never know where the relationships lie. Because if there's any young medics that are still listening to this, it don't matter how smart you are, not at all. The relationships are the only thing that matter.
That's right. That's amen.
Yeah.
Amen. Look, I'm going to tell you this too. You mentioned Furno. Mike and I were of the generation the M30 was our primary stretcher.
The
So
backbreakers. Yeah, I started on those too.
The Widowmaker.
that's absolutely right. And one of the shirt lines that I've got in my Shopify store, we've
Go
got
buy a shirt.
we've got the Gettin 10-8 merch, but we've broken it down to EMS, firefighters, law enforcement, and dispatch. So we've got different collections in there. Well, of course, the medic is where all the stuff runs through my head and I come up with stuff. So there's a M30 on the back, and it says the M30 stretcher. And then I've got 3 different designs. Down on the bottom, it says brought to you by your chiropractor, or sponsored by your chiropractor, or sponsored by your orthopedic surgeon, or they didn't drop all the time. So, so I've got all those different shirts on there that, old timers. And then I've got one that I made a shirt that's got the kit that I carried, which was the Umco tackle box with the possum belly, all the IV solutions in the possum belly, all your drugs up in the tackle box.
Yep, the tackle box.
Next to it was the Life Pack 5 laying next to it. And then in the background was the M30 stretcher. And it says the old guard. And it says charter member. Mike, that's the shirt you need to order.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah. So Patrick, I appreciate you coming on again and spending this much time with me. I know you're on the other side of the country. It's getting a little late where you're at. Please tell us you'll come back again. I promise you I won't hit you up a month later like I did this time.
No, I'd be delighted. This is kind of fun. It's a lot of fun to be able to do stuff like this. So yeah, if I'm available, I'll absolutely hop back on.
Yeah, we're kind of laid back here. When I came up with the concept to do this, and I had time in radio, but it was for outdoor sports back when I was doing radio and stuff like that. And my son said, Dad, you need to do a podcast. I'm like, oh, what do you mean? So he told me I needed to do this. And I said, well, if I do this, I want to bring together folks that aren't in the trade anymore, because I want us all to be sitting around drinking beer and not have to worry about what HR is going to say about what we say, and know that the statute of limitations are long since passed. We can actually talk about, all right, y'all are going to hear some shit now. So, Patrick, again, thank you so much for coming on. Mike, always a pleasure to have you on. Anything y'all want
No
to say
problem.
before I pull us all the way out?
No, nice to meet you, Mike. It's been an honor. And like I said, I'll come back anytime you'll have me.
All right, man.
Patrick, nice meeting you. And I plan on watching the movie first chance I get if we don't have any rolling brownouts or blackouts today.
That's what he had today, Patrick. I told him, I said, your homework, because he's retired, he can do this. I said, your homework is before you come on this podcast, make sure you look at the podcast that Patrick was on before, and make sure you watch Code 3. And
Available now on Apple, Amazon, and Fandango.
absolutely. Absolutely. And worth every penny and worth every minute you will give it. Look, everybody's going, oh, it's going to be this great comedy. Dude, it reaches out. It grabbed me. It grabbed me. It's the Pit with humor. It's the Pit with the kind of humor that we had. It's medic humor.
Yeah.
Is that a fair
That's
assessment,
what kept
Patrick?
us sane.
Yeah.
So, folks, if y'all made it this far in the video, please go ahead and do that favor for me. Hit that like, hit the subscribe, and hit notifications so you can catch every Friday when we drop these episodes. Thank y'all so much for coming along. We'll see you on the next one.